It's funny to think about, but what if I told you there's a whole other financial world, one that runs in parallel to ours, but completely in the shadows? A place where trillions in assets are basically invisible. Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain.
So let me just ask you this. Where do you hide $1 billion? I mean, $1 billion in art or gold or jewels, and do it completely legally so it just vanishes from the grid? The answer's kind of wild and way simpler than you probably think.
Welcome to the world of the Freeport ledger. Now, this isn't some dusty old book in a vault. Nope. It's a system. A network of super secure warehouses where fortunes are traded in total secrecy. Think of it like a ledger written in invisible ink, one that no government can read.
So the key to this whole thing is something called a Freeport. You'll find them in places like Switzerland, Singapore, Luxembourg, and they're basically these ultra-high security fortresses, usually right next to an airport. But here's the crazy part, the real legal magic trick. Anything stored inside isn't technically in that country. It's just sort of floating in this weird international limbo.
And it all works because of this one clever little legal fiction. Everything inside is officially labeled in transit. Right, in transit, even if a painting hasn't budged for 50 years. And because of that label, poof, no import duties, no VAT, and, this is the big one, none of the standard financial reporting you'd have to do for pretty much any other valuable asset on the planet. Just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, get a load of this number. That's the estimated number of artworks stashed away in the Geneva Freeport alone. We're talking about one of the most valuable art collections on Earth, and almost nobody ever gets to see it.
And that really shows you how these places have changed, They didn't start out this way. Freeports were just supposed to be temporary holding pens for international trade, a practical way to avoid tariffs for a little while. But now, they've morphed into something completely different. They're basically permanent invisible bank vaults for the ultra-rich. All this secrecy has created what experts call a legal black box. It's the perfect analogy, really. You have all these priceless assets and massive transactions going in one side and absolutely zero information coming out the other. I mean, just look at the difference here. When you or I do a major transaction, it sets off all these alerts, right? Banks report it, tax authorities get notified, there are checks and balances. But inside a Freeport, a $100 million painting can change hands with nothing more than a handshake and a private contract. The art stays put, no banks, no public record. Officially, it's like the sale never even happened. This massive information gap creates something security pros call dark data, and that's exactly what it is. The data exists, we know someone bought something for some price, but it's intentionally kept in the shadows. It's systematically hidden from the very people whose job it is to keep the global financial system honest. We're talking about a blind spot big enough to hide a small country's entire treasury. And don't think for a second this is some kind of accident or oversight. As governance expert Imran Badi puts it, this isn't an incidental failure. The secrecy is part of the blueprint. It's baked into the very design. The problem, he says, is architectural. Okay, so this is where it gets really serious. This isn't just about rich people avoiding taxes on their Picassos. This secret stash of wealth has become a major threat to global security. It's the perfect hiding place for anyone trying to dodge sanctions or stash away stolen public money. And this isn't just theoretical. Let's look at a pretty chilling real-world example. In the months leading up to the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, a whole bunch of high-value art owned by Russian oligarchs just quietly disappeared into Freeports. So when the West finally slammed down sanctions, guess what? Those billions in assets were already gone. They were untouchable, perfectly shielded and hidden away from the very governments trying to enforce the law. So what are we talking about in total? The estimated value of all the assets being hidden from view in systems like this is a jaw-dropping $100 billion. Let that sink in for a moment. And yeah, that number should matter to every single one of us. Because when $100 billion just vanishes off the books, it completely warps our picture of the economy. How can you have fair tax policies? How can governments plan for the future when the data they're using is fundamentally broken? This goes way beyond the super wealthy. It attacks the very integrity of the economic systems we all rely on. But look, it's not all doom and gloom. This isn't some impossible problem to solve. So, what's the path forward? Well, the idea isn't to get rid of Freeports entirely. It's just to bring them out of the shadows. It's time to turn on the lights. And experts have a pretty clear 3-step plan. Step 1, force them to register the beneficial owner. That's the actual human being who owns the thing, not some anonymous shell company. Step 2, any big sale has to be reported, no exceptions. And step 3, make sure countries are actually talking to each other and sharing this information. Basically, it's about creating a paper trail where, right now, there's absolutely nothing.
Again, the goal here isn't to abolish free ports. They still have a legit role to play in global trade. The point is just to hold them to the same standard as everything else. It's about applying the same basic rules of transparency to a multi-million-dollar painting that we already apply to stocks, bonds, or a piece of property.
And really, that brings us to the core question, doesn't it? Should something get a free pass just because it's beautiful or has an insane price tag? Should it get to play by a totally different set of rules than the rest of us? I mean, is any asset really above the law? The way forward, as the source material so powerfully puts it, starts with one simple thing: refusing to believe that this architecture of impunity is just the way things are. It's not natural. It's not inevitable. This system was designed by people, and that means it can be redesigned by them too.